Hey, Watt Hour community. Happy day one. This is my new daily vlog. And I'm William Hadala, and this is the Watt Hour Daily. Today's big question is why space tech matters. And now more than ever, I took a poll on our site on YouTube. Believe it or not, we're up to over 17,000 subscribers in like 30 days. That's pretty amazing. And I think we may have gone over the 18,000 member mark. So thank you for subscribing. I am not just wanting to post videos for the sake of posting videos. I'm really wanting to post videos to provoke thought, to educate, to get input, direction. Who are companies that we can speak to, an interview or guests to have on the podcast. But this vlog today is just really for me to showcase what I'm going through on a day-to-day basis, and to go through what's important to you. On the initial poll that we've taken, a number of you have said that you would like to have space and space tech focus. So I'm going to try this out to see if that's what really the audience wants and how we can engage. So when we think about space tech and why it matters more now than ever, think it's all, do you think it's all about rockets and headlines? Is that what we think? The reality is, if you think again, space tech is really from powering lunar bases to securing America's presence in orbit and beyond. And space tech really is reshaping everything. For me, last week, I was fortunate and honored to be at the Golden Dome kickoff for industry in Huntsville, Alabama. And that was pretty exciting to be there to see what the strategy is, the technology that exists, and how we will not only protect the homeland here in the United States, but I really believe there'll come a time where this technology will be exported to US and its allies. For years, America has been criticized about being the policeman of the world. Perhaps it's time to take ownership of that concept, but instead of America continuing to give its taxpayer dollars away to the rest of the world to protect the security of the globe, perhaps we should start monetizing, and perhaps we should truly get paid to be a protector. Ronald Reagan said that America is like a beacon on top of a hill of light. And if that beacon is taken away, the world will fall into darkness. We do have a lot of issues in this country, and but the one thing I do know is that those of us that truly believe in what America represents, especially people like myself who come from families that migrated to the United States from Germany, Italy, Poland, and many of you with family and friends, maybe including yourselves, migrating here. That's what makes America so beautiful. It's a democracy. It's having the freedoms and protections of a government to allow us to have any opinion that we want, to speak whatever it is that we need to speak when we want, but doing it in a way that's responsible, for being thy brother's keeper, sister's keeper, loving one another, but most importantly, ensuring that everyone has the freedoms to live a life that they choose to live, and doing so in a responsible way. So that's my kind of thoughts on space and America and the Golden Dome and being there. And at American Lithium Energy, we're producing made in the United States battery cells that are ideal and are designed for defense, land, sea, air, and space applications, aerospace, think UAVs, passenger aircraft, but most importantly, spacecraft. And so there's a lot to say with he who controls or actually manufactures the power that will enable these platforms. So, just going through my normal day and looking at news and what's going on in the world, the first headline is that the Artemis 2 mission, which is NASA's first crewed lunar orbit mission since Apollo, is now scheduled for 2026. It's so exciting. It's not 2025 as had hoped earlier, but now at least we have 2026 as a clear, concrete target for humanity's return to lunar orbit. And as you know or may not know, this mission really is pivotal. It's to launch pad, not just to orbit, but eventually to land with Artemis 3 in mid 2027 as we start thinking about lunar establishment from bases, cislunar, as we prepare to go to Mars. So I'm extremely excited about that. The other interesting topic in the headline today is nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030. And NASA is really accelerating the efforts to build a 100 kilowatt nuclear reactor on the moon, potentially active by 2035. And that's going to be a real game changer for powering lunar habitats, science, and exploration. And the reason why that's so important is it also has implications here on Earth. And often NASA, JPL, the government are asked, why spend all this money in space, the moon, and Mars, and beyond when there's so many things that we could be spending that money here on Earth? But the reality is if it wasn't for space-based technology, many of the things that we enjoy and take advantage of every day, we may not have. Good example is GPS. And every time you go on to Ubers or Uber Eats or order something online, that's all using GPS in addition to allowing you to drive from point A to point B, without a map. But most importantly, allowing airplanes and ships and precision agriculture and all the various things that we use and take for granted on every day. So that's a good example. So when it comes to nuclear reactors, the terminology is often radioisotopic, and basically using radioisotopic technology that basically will provide a continuous discharge of electricity that can be used in energy storage on the moon. On the moon, there's not a lot of gravity like in space, and humans don't tend to do real well in environments that do not have gravity. And there's been a lot of research done on long-term exposure in space due to lack of gravity. And for a long-term survivability of humans, we're really going to need to think of technologies that allow us to create some sort of artificial gravity. And also, how do we explore the moon and establish moon bases through the use of robotics? And when we think about robotics and autonomous systems, whether they be small or large, I mean, if we're going to build a moon base, we got to get Caterpillar, John Deere size equipment up on the moon. And that's a whole nother conversation, which I'm going to get into with how do we get these large platforms into space. But when we start establishing these systems on the moon for future humans to reside there, we're going to need to use platforms that use electricity. And having a nuclear reactor on the moon, it will be beneficial, but it will also usher in a new generation of power generation here on Earth. Instead of big nuclear reactors, we'll have small modular nuclear reactors. So it's an area that I'm excited about, know a lot about with partners such as my good friend Tom Adams at NAVSEA Crane, who's a subject matter expert on this, and how do we use this technology to even integrate into the battery cells? Imagine cells that you could use but never need to be recharged, and that's the future that we're going into. And also, how do you wirelessly transmit electricity on the moon without having to have cables or wires from point A to point B? And one thing I want you to think about is look up at the moon. There'll be a day very soon that you'll remember that there was never any light on the moon, not light from the sun from its reflection, but literally imagine a moon that has electricity and looks like Earth at night with the lights shining bright. And that day will come. And just like there's a day in my generation that didn't know the internet, didn't know cell phones, there'll be a day that we'll say, wow, I knew of a day when there was no light on the moon. And that's extremely exciting. And all that's going to be integrated into energy storage, battery cells, nuclear power, wireless power that will harvest from the sun, not just with solar, but with high power type of directed energy. So that's exciting. And then meanwhile, in the private sector and commercial sector, we're continuing to see the growth of a lot of exciting new technologies, especially from non-traditional companies that aren't necessarily considered large, but small startups. And private players are spinning ahead. SpaceX Starship, including its lunar lander version called Starship HLS, is gearing up for test flights in 2025. And critical infrastructure that's going to be required if Artemis missions are going to succeed. And I still believe there's room for newcomers to come onto the scene and to continue to help expand the space economy, such as Blue Origin and others are building up payload landers, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And a company called Astros. They have something called Astros Intuitive Machines and Firefly. How exciting was that? Landing on the moon not so long ago with Firefly, and they're all targeting lunar deliveries in 2025, which means that we're going to need to start getting more and more larger payloads into space. And I think Starship is going to be instrumental in doing that. But I also think that the concept of space elevators, which is the ability to build an elevator, whether it's tethered or a tower up into space, to get those larger platforms that are going to be required, keeping in mind the International Space Station is going to need to be replaced very soon. And there's some exciting companies like Vast Space, Blue Origin, and others that are building infrastructure to put up there to replace the International Space Station. So, this is where it gets real for me. Someone stepping onto the platform of the future and deeply integrated in energy and battery tech. I get excited again that a lunar nuclear reactor signals serious evolution in how we think about off-Earth power. I've spent so much time in Africa and Central America, but mainly Africa. It's a real shame, in a country like Zambia, which is down by South Africa, they're very rich in copper, and there's these copper mines, and there have been countries like China who have gone in there to mine the copper and entering into deals with the government of Zambia. And in order to mine copper, you need a lot of power. And so you'll fly into the capital, Lusaka, in Zambia, and then go out into the countryside. And the one thing that really struck me is that the moment you left the city, the concrete roads turn into dirt. There's little village after little village, and you see men and women on bicycles and walking with wood. And it's wood from trees that they've burnt down into charcoal, which then they use in their homes for cooking and for light by fire. And meanwhile, these high-powered transmission lines go from the city all the way out, hours out into the countryside to these mines where they use the electricity that's needed. But the small little communities, they don't have any electricity. They just bypass them. I just don't understand that. And if there ever were a day that I would be blessed to maybe even be in a position like the President of the United States, these are things that I'm really passionate about, is making sure that third world countries have the basic necessities in life for critical infrastructure to at least have the lights on with electricity, to at least have the basic necessities of the internet and other basic necessities of life. And we so take that for granted here in the United States. So perhaps small modular nuclear reactors, the ability to leverage what DARPA is doing with the DARPA Power Project, wirelessly transmitting electricity, a lot of electricity from point A to point B, and hopping it, using the stratosphere and what's called high altitude platforms. And this week, I'm doing an interview with the CEO of the HAPS, High Altitude Platform Alliance. And so there's a platform called the Sky Dweller that AeroVironment has worked with DARPA to successfully demonstrate how wireless power can be transmitted. So all that being said, all that we're doing on the moon has huge implications on Earth. If we can get power in the moon, then maybe we can get power into the outskirts of Zambia or many of the countries across Africa, and let alone clean drinking water in places that need that water the most by pulling out water from the air, which we're doing on another project alongside some amazing partners. So yeah, so if you combine all this that I've just said, and then also integrating private landing logistics on the moon or in orbit, and using reusable rockets like Starship, or maybe even having the bold task of trying and attempting to build a space elevator, you're now making, or you have the makings of an industrial space infrastructure that's not just sci-fi, but real, unfolding now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I've got some things to show you, just a little interaction on this daily vlog. And we'll look back at this one day and go from day to day as a diary. Yeah, as I was talking about, we have this Space Daily article where Trump and Musk alliance should boost the space economy. I don't know. There was an article saying that Musk apologized to Trump and vice versa. I'm just not sure what's going on there, but this article outlines that SpaceX, the Starship, is ready to accelerate quickly. And with that quick acceleration, this reusable Starship heavy booster that's awaiting the regulatory approvals from the FAA. It's like 400 feet high. I mean, this thing is massive. That we'll be able to get larger payloads in space, because we've got to get those larger payloads in space, especially in the orbit and then onto the moon. I have a book called Moonbase, which I'll showcase on the show. I even make a few videos on that. The next aspect here is that on the Artemis timelines, so Artemis 2 is moving forward, as I've said, and it's exciting. The Orion spacecraft is being prepared, and so a lot of good data there to dive in on. If this is something that I need to cover, I'd be more than happy to cover it. I love this diagram here because, again, it's putting these platforms not only into orbit, but getting them up onto the moon. And then using the moon as a launching pad to then go out into deeper space, which is like Mars. So it'll be interesting to see where that all goes, especially with mining of asteroids. We've shown that we can successfully land on an asteroid. Now the question is being able to harvest the asteroid and to mine it. And then the question is, where do you want to mine it at? Do you want to mine it on the moon? Oh, no, it's a little bit close to Earth. Maybe we want to do it out on Mars. And there's another article about a asteroid coming into, or meteor, I guess they're calling it, into into our solar system, and people are questioning whether or not this is alien intelligence or what have you. I'm just not really sure, but I'll get into that as I delve a little bit more. This article here in Politico is on the nuclear reactor on the moon. I don't quite get the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I am not a fear and uncertainty doubt. I'm an optimist. I've been part of the optimist organization since I was a young man in my troubled youth, and so I always see the glass as being half full versus empty. So there's been some comparisons of nuclear reactors in China, and we don't do it. China's going to do. I don't. China, kind of Iran, and it's like just stop. Let's just think. How do we create global peace? And then from there, how do we then expand into space? But how the hell are we going to expand into space when we can't even keep peace on Earth? And so, yeah, nuclear reactors. So I'm extremely confident that this is going to happen. And so there are some projects here on Earth that they're using small modular nuclear reactors with the military. So one of the things you got to think about on the moon is a lunar night. When you think about a lunar night, you're talking about a period of time where there's no sunlight. It gets extremely cold. And if you only are using batteries and solar, how do you condition those batteries? But being able to have a nuclear reactor and radioisotopic materials up there, now you have the ability to recharge, keep warm. It just makes a whole lot of sense. And the nuclear technology is a lot different than 3 Mile Island or with the larger nuclear reactors that we see today. And it's so funny. It's our society went into a direction of being anti-nuclear, but yet the biggest nuclear engine or reactor in the world is just look up into the daylight. It's the sun. I mean, do we think about that? So the technology's improved quite a bit, and so we're going to start seeing that. Here's a rendering of Starship. I mean, this thing is huge. Imagine linking multiple starships together to create an international space lab type of platform, or better yet, being able to lift heavy payload like Caterpillar trucks or tractors and robots. And so it's more than just putting men into space and beyond, but there's going to come a time now that we need to get heavier platforms into space. If you think about Star Trek and Star Wars, I mean, think about how did they get these items outside of the planet's orbit to build them into larger units, and that's where additive manufacturing and some of these other technologies that we'll cover in the weeks to come will come in. Here we go is 13 space missions to watch in 2025, from lunar landings to Mars slingshot. And so we're going to get the people out to the moon, and with a little bit of delays, they're still pushing forward. This is a Starship flight test number 7 of what could be up to 20 orbital tests during 2025 that's being developed by SpaceX. Then there's this Blue Ghost, which is made by Firefly. The Blue Ghost, the lunar lander. The Firefly Aerospace first mission, also known as Ghost Rider in the Sky, will carry 10 science and technology instruments for the moon. And when was this published? I'm curious. So this is published early in the year. They've already got that up there. So it's just showcasing different technologies. I'm hopeful there will be an interview with Firefly. Firefly is a recipient of Space Force funding, just like American Lithium Energy. And so they need batteries. So I hope it's only a matter of time before we can get out there and showcase what we're doing. What they're doing. The Dream Chaser. Oh my God, I love this Dream Chaser. It's my dream. It could be almost like the Automobile Club tow truck in orbit in the sky, and I just can't understand why they haven't been able to monetize this thing. My last podcast, episode 10, is how capabilities as a service will transform the military. Offer it as a service, and there's so many other commercial services. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I know that we're looking at different spaceports to potentially land this Dream Chaser, one of which is Las Vegas, which would be perfect But, bureaucracy and current government legislators have prevented that from happening. But the Dream Chaser is the future. It's just a smaller version of the space shuttle, and it's definitely much needed. This is the Sphere X, which is a 2-year NASA mission to map the entire sky every 6 months with both optical and infrared light. Space domain awareness is really, really important. And especially when you think about missile defense, Golden Dome, you need real-time situational awareness. And as I've been saying to our DoD partners, the ability to create a digital twin of everything down to the ground, to the sky, to the air, and then being able to you leverage that to the platforms that we need to do. Supposedly, Boeing, the Starliner, is going to come back. We shall see. And some other great missions that are out here. So, yeah, so we're pushing forward on that. Good article here on Wired Magazine. This is not advertising, so I'm just not sure why this is doing this, but transforming the moon into humanity's first hub, space hub. I wonder if the moon is really as hollow as they say it is. I've seen some conspiracy theorists say that it's hollow and it's man-made by alien technology, or alien-made, not man-made. But I've also seen that it actually has porosity in there. But the moon definitely is the launching pad. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we protect it and don't do something that we could regret much later. Space elevators. Oh my gosh, I've written papers on this. There's so many concepts. I think it's Ad Astra, the movie that used a space elevator. But what a great way to get objects up into low Earth orbit. And there's a story that the Tower of Babylon, where man in his supremacy thought he could build the highest platform in the world. And anyhow, this isn't like a Tower of Babylon, but really, how can we build a structure to put larger platforms into space and being able to do it safely? And so I'm eager to see where this technology goes. I know that there's some great papers that are written on it. So I'm a proponent of it. The cost associated with it is what it is. It's only, I believe, a matter of time before we see it. And there's a lot written on space elevators that you can see that are online. When you think about this concept, you don't feel the Earth rotating here on Earth. I mean, it is what keeps us down to the ground so we don't just fly away. But as you get higher and higher and higher, it's 17,500 miles per hour. So that's swinging around quite fast. But I believe all these things can be overcome, and it's only a matter of time. And it is, others like MIT is saying that it is possible with today's technologies. And researchers say we just need to dangle it off the moon. That's interesting. It would not only reduce the power of launch, yet others have said pre-positioning materials on the moon. You gotta get off the moon. You gotta get materials off the Earth to put on the moon to do what I'm about to suggest, where it's actually cheaper or less money to launch from the moon. So is there ways to build product on the moon to launch it into orbit? But once again, it's kind of an oxymoron. You got to get the platforms, the materials into space. So let me know what you think about that subject. And then there's the Space Force and all that's going on over there. There's going to be a solicitation that opens up here very shortly that's specifically around space domain awareness. I'm excited. Before American Lithium Energy, I was co-founder of TMG Core Edge Computing, and they thought I was crazy, I think, in many ways because of the concepts of putting high performance compute, edge computing in space, as well as maybe converting a Dragon capsule or an X-37B or even a Dream Chaser into a data center that is in space in orbit, or putting energy storage in orbit. Well, the reality is here now because Space Domain Awareness at a Space Force will have a solicitation opening up next month where it's focused on three different areas. One is edge computing in space, two is next generation of payloads and sensors that integrate AI and machine learning. And then the third is a next generation satellite bus that all these platforms and sensors and compute will be built upon. And for us, it's exciting because edge computing is our batteries are right integrated into that space. And at the same time, with Golden Dome, you can integrate that back down to the ground-based systems that will be modular edge data centers with AI, machine learning, high-capacity compute, and energy storage that can allow for non-kinetic weapons or any other X-band, ISR type of functionality, but why not also commercialize it for critical infrastructure like the 55,000 substations on Earth that need to be protected, converting wireless towers into satellite communication towers, space towers. There's so much there. And so, I want to thank our partners at Space Force because if it wasn't for them, in many cases, I wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now. And love them or hate them, Donald Trump really did usher this in. But this was also a change that has been in the works for a really, really long time. And the Space Force is merely just a spin out. I don't say merely, but it's a spin out of the Air Force Space Command. And then they just got significant funding this year to continue to expand of what they're doing. And this whole next generation of GPS-3 satellites and space debris. There's just so many different opportunities for companies of all sizes to step out and to become part of or part of with. So thank you, Space Force, for having one day Space Force and Air Force Reserves might be sponsors of the show. And, we talked a little bit about Blue Origin as well and Jeff Bezos' group. Not only are they doing the Mark 1 Blue Moon lunar lander, they also have some beautiful renderings of, this is one here. This is just really so pretty. This is what they're envisioning as the future of space stations, habitats that will live. In fact, there was an article just recently about the ability to go to the nearest star and that it is possible to build starships that would allow that to happen. And the people on that starship may never know life because it's a 400 mission. And I think there's a movie television short what do they call the smaller documentaries, so you're all going to be like but there was a short documentary done on that. So anyhow, that is what's going on today. So other than that, I was interviewed for a magazine earlier today for CXO, and that was exciting, and got to talk a little bit about national security. How the topic was how to commercialize dual use tech for national security. So we'll see how that comes out. I have another interview on Wednesday. This week, I was supposed to go to Washington, D.C., and the briefing that we were going to attend got postponed. So unfortunately, with everything going on here at ALE and our expansion of our mega factory and having to hire key team members, I am staying back as much as I want to go to the Army, Navy Industry Day at Aberdeen Proving Grounds with C5ISR. We love you. We're excited about the projects that we're currently working with both Navy and with the Army on standardization of Group 2 and 3 UAV battery cells and packs. as well as recently being awarded a contract with Navy to develop sodium ion batteries. How exciting is that? Potential of sodium ion. And so we'll have like lithium ion, nanosilicon, NMC, LCO, LFMP, LFP, but also forging the road to the potential of sodium ion. There's a lot of salt in the world, so we'll see how that goes. And we've got some amazing commercial partners that want to work with us to put batteries into secondary equipment that's used at airports, ports, train yards, as well as forklifts and tractors. And perhaps, just perhaps, as we scale, we'll start putting batteries into places where you live, work, and play. But most importantly, we're focused on critical infrastructure, high performance batteries. So, yeah, this was fun. Day one is done. And let me know what you think. What should I be creating? What type of segments should I be doing? And that basically wraps it up. So tomorrow we'll be diving into battery tech engineered for satellites and long duration space missions. And don't forget to vote, to go in the vote in the links comment on this page to help steer our future episodes. So as always, don't forget to subscribe, to like the page, recommend this to friends and family. My hopes is to eventually have a small little film crew to get out into the field. We got press credentials now, so that I can go out and interview companies. And maybe one day, just one day, my dream of having a Disney production company will come true, and we can broadcast quality educational videos not only for the youth but for corporations, and doing it in the exceptional way of Disney as a Disney production company. And maybe, just maybe, NASA will allow us to create content for them as well. So have a great day, and until tomorrow, make it a good one.